Well, good evening, everyone. Such a pleasure to have you all here with us for our first ever Beauty Triangle panel at Headsaw House at Sherina's incredible immersive event. We're so delighted so many of you were able to join us. I think this is one of our first events outside of London as well, so what a beautiful place to come to. And immensely honoured to have been invited to join you here and to host this amazing talk. I met many of you outside. I'm Francesca Ogiman-White, and I'm the founder of the Beauty Triangle. So we're here tonight to talk about beauty through tech. After all, as human beings, we're living longer than ever before. We're achieving so much more than ever before. So how do we really optimize that for the years ahead? And how do we really go about rehabilitating our skin, mind, and body? We're going to be answering all of that with our incredible lineup of speakers very soon. But just to recap on the Beauty Triangle very quickly, I explained to many of you outside, but we established TBT 5 years ago now as a way to educate and empower audiences on all aspects of their health and well-being via monthly panel discussions. The idea is that it's always holistic, so at our talks you'll always find 3 absolute experts ready to take a real deep dive into the subject of our choosing. We talk about everything from biohacking to menopause, from skin confidence to how to prepare for plastic surgery. The limits sky high, and the conversations we have are really exciting and relevant to how I think we're embracing wellness today. It's also our intention, however, at the Beauty Triangle to introduce the most trusted speakers in the world of well-being. Putting genuine information from genuine practitioners out there is what we really believe in. After all, we exist in such an era of misinformation, and there's a lot that goes on social media and on TikTok, and I think sometimes it's better just to go straight to the practitioners themselves, because these are the guys who really know what they're talking about. On that note, I'd love to pass over to our panel and introduce them very quickly. They're then going to say a very quick hello to everyone before we get started. We're joined by CEO of Saluma, inventor, Patrick Johnson, Medical Director of Aesthetics Clinic, Ms. Sherina Balaratnam herself, and clinical hypnotherapist, Anna Lancaster. And really they're here to explore the power of human potential. So we're going to be looking at all of the high-tech treatments that can really show us what the changing face of aesthetics might look like in the future. But we're also going to be exploring the at-home devices, the tools, and the therapies that can really help to supercharge us for the road that lies ahead. I think that's probably about enough from me. I'd love to hear from you guys really quickly, a very brief introduction to all of you. We will have time for an audience Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, do just save them up until then, and we'll absolutely make sure we come to you. But I'm going to start by passing you over firstly to Patrick Johnson to say a very quick hello.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know that this is a fact, but I'm told that I'm the first Beauty Triangle participant who's not a member, and so this is sort of a double pleasure for me. I think
this is quite the honor for you.
Yeah,
lucky you.
I think Groucho Marx said, "I'd never want to belong to a club that would have me as a member." So I'm grateful that I'm not, and honored to be here tonight.
Patrick, you're an unofficial member of our club, and we're delighted to have you here with us. It really is such a pleasure.
And he's a Sagittarius.
And I'm a Sagittarius.
That all-important piece of knowledge.
Thank you, Francesca. Sherina Balaratnam, I'm a former NHS plastic and reconstructive surgeon. I spent the last 12 years in the NHS, but now wholly specializing in the last 12 years here in non-surgical regenerative medicine. I'm the founder and medical director of the Aesthetics Clinic. We're based in Beaconsfield, and I specialize now in everything non-invasive for the skin, face, scalp, and body. And I'll be certainly introducing things for the mind very soon. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Anna Lancaster and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I am a RTT practitioner and a mindset coach, which sounds like a lot of things, but essentially it means I work with your subconscious mind. Because you have 2 parts of the mind, your conscious mind, which is your thinking mind, and your subconscious mind, which is your feeling mind. And your feeling mind will always win over your thinking mind. So I changed that one up a bit. I practice in London, but I also, thank God for Zoom, I practice around the world as well. I have lots of international clientele, which means I can get further. But I'm looking forward to talking to you all tonight.
We're all looking forward to hearing from you as well. Anna is the most fascinating human being, and I think everything that you have to tell us about the brain and the mind and how that functions in our overall longevity is stuff that we all absolutely need to know right now. So we're really, delighted to be joined by all three of you. Thank you very much for being here tonight. So everyone's introduced themselves, and we're going to start with our first amazing speaker, Patrick Johnson. He introduced himself already somewhat. He is, as I've already explained, CEO, founder, inventor of Saluma, the most incredible at-home LED device, in-clinic device, really sort of supercharging the way that our bodies, minds, and everything really sort of functions. But Patrick, you know absolutely everything there is to know about LED, but maybe you can set the scene for us a little. How did we become to learn as much as we know about the power and the potential of LED? What sort of sparked this?
The clinical research into low-level light therapy, which was originally laser therapy, because lasers were invented before light-emitting diodes, dates back to the early 1960s, where oncologists in Eastern Europe wanted to know whether or not doses of low-level light therapy would have any effect on mutated cells. And it turns out it didn't. But in a very famous rat study where they had surgically implanted malignant tumors, the researchers observed that on the rats that were being treated with the light therapy, the incisions were healing faster and the hair was growing back faster. So they knew something was going on metabolically. Jump forward 4 decades, and NASA is looking at the impact of zero-gravity environments on long-duration space travel, sending astronauts to Mars. And we know that as sort of biological organisms that evolved on the face of the Earth, our bodies at a cellular level rely on Earth's gravity. And when you take the human body out of Earth's gravity, it gets really confused and actually enters a state of hyperaging. Well, that has all sorts of implications back here on the face of the Earth, where we're bombarded every day with environmental insults, whether those be disease, illness, injury, bad behavioral habits, or just the normal aging process. I mean, arguably the aging process can be described as the degradation of cellular function. And so NASA invented high-intensity LEDs to counter the effects of zero-gravity environments. And we now have the benefit of that and can take advantage of it in reversing some of the degradation of cellular function from, our day-to-day activities.
It's fascinating. It really does show the connection between light and energy and why this is such a vital source of all human beings. It really does power us up and it keeps us going. But bringing it back to human beings, what does LED offer to mere mortals? I mean, how can we, on the day-to-day, really benefit from the power of LED devices?
Yeah, I mean, as I think I've shared previously, I equate it to the benefits of hydration. That if you didn't know how important hydration was to your overall health, you'd be really sick. And the same is true of cellular energy, that if your body doesn't have the ability to produce the energy at a cellular level to drive normal cellular function, you get really sick. Yeah. And so, the true potential is reversing what has been experienced, at least for the last couple centuries, as the normal aging process. And, all of the things that ail us in day to day, as a consequence of our lives, whether that's, sitting at a desk all day or wearing tight shoes or whatever it may be, we can counter those insults on the body with light energy.
It's incredible. You can really alleviate, sort of modern day ailments. And tell us about the applications, because the Saluma device has 10 FDA clearances, and they range from things like acne scarring, hair restoration, muscle pain, arthritic pain. What else is it sort of applicable to nowadays in humans?
Yeah, I think Sherina had said earlier today that, we're all afflicted by inflammation. And inflammation is the body's natural protection mechanism against further injury. So when you injure yourself, you get inflamed, it hurts, and then you stop walking on that ankle or whatever the case may be. The problem is that inflammation retards cellular healing. And so what we need to do is we need to knock down the inflammatory process and then give cells the energy that they lack to heal. And that's kind of the 1-2 punch of light therapy that we're able to do that. So while we are only allowed to make specific medical claims that we have proven the Saluma is effective and safe in treating, pretty much anything that is inflammatory based is going to be benefited by light therapy, at least from the surface of the skin to about 25 millimeters below. There are studies that show deeper benefits, but we like to go with the consensus in the clinical literature, and so specifically we can talk about muscular stiffness, muscular aches and pains, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, increasing microcirculation, which everybody can benefit from, delivering more nutrients and more oxygen to the tissue so the tissue can heal faster, and then on the aesthetic side, reducing the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles in the skin, which again is a function as we age of cellular degradation. Fibroblast cells don't work the way they did when we were young, and so we lose the matrix in the skin and we lose the tautness in the skin. Treating acne vulgaris, inflammatory-based acne vulgaris, and then our latest indication for use, hair restoration.
And this is fascinating because this is a really burgeoning area in aesthetics now, the hair restoration category.
Yeah, and quite honestly, we went after the hair restoration indication because we wanted to increase our male patient population.
And we all know males were really sort of sold on a hair restoration device.
Well, and what we discovered from all our practitioners was, 40% of women presenting over the age of 40 report hair loss issues.
Absolutely.
And so it was great because, our practitioners didn't have to find new patients for the new indication for use. So they could be doing facial treatment as well as hair restoration treatments. And
hair loss, sorry to interrupt as well, with sort of COVID, lockdowns, stress, inadequate nutrition sometimes, diets, restrictive eating, perimenopause, hormonal fluctuations. There are so many things driving hair loss today, and actually really utilizing the power of light as a way to energize the hair follicles and really wake them up is something that I think a lot of people could really benefit from.
Yeah, I think, again, it's the same basic mechanism of action, but in the case of hair growth is a 3-phase cycle, and the longest phase is the growth of the hair, but then it routinely goes into a hibernation phase, and the problem is with hair loss is it gets stuck in the hibernation phase. And so with light energy we can remind those cells that they're not supposed to be sleeping, that they're actually supposed to be working, and if the follicle is still there, we're then able to, increase the growth of the hair and increase the thickness and length of the hair.
And so when we talk about LED, we often hear about blue light, red light, near infrared light. Can you tell us a little bit about the differences between those, and is it important? Why is it important?
Yeah, so there's close to 7,000 clinical papers on low-level light therapy using LEDs, and they basically teach us that blue, red, and near infrared wavelengths are those that are the most optimally absorbed by the body. And, while there are devices out there and while there may be anecdotal information out there about green light or yellow light or purple light, having some sort of benefit. We know from the clinical literature that devices with blue, red, and near infrared are going to be efficacious. And wavelength, or the color we perceive of light energy, determines depth of penetration. The longer the wavelength of light, the deeper it penetrates. And so what we've done in the Soluma is we've picked the wavelengths that deliver the majority of energy dose to that level of tissue that we want to treat. And so there's no needing to figure it out. We've already figured it out and built it into the device by emitting multiple wavelengths of light simultaneously based upon the depth of the condition we're treating.
Because you and I spoke about this sort of offline earlier, and you were saying a lot of people think red is for collagen boosting and blue is for acne, but the way that you've developed Soluma sort of disproves that somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like layering your clothes, as if, blue is soothing and red is interjecting, sort of vitalizing, and infrared is intense, stimulation. It's like, no, it's not that at all. It's really a lot more boring than that. It's just, what do you want to be treating, and what's the appropriate wavelength to be treating that depth of tissue?
I feel like journalists play a really big part there, because I've probably written many a feature saying acne calming blue light device and collagen stimulating red light. So actually I think it's a really good educational piece to actually understand that the true science behind these devices, which, let's face it, are becoming trendy and very sort of covetable nowadays.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole body of urban mythology around LED light therapy. I'm actually doing a webinar in a couple of weeks called Too Much to Blue About Nothing, because there's so much disinformation out there about what makes an LED device effective that, we're very committed and have been from the founding of the company to educate people on what the science is and what you can expect from the therapy and what you can't expect.
100%, and that's why we love your device so much. It's so rooted in the science and the rehabilitation of what the sort of light power is doing. Final question for you, Patrick. We've spoken a lot about the aesthetic benefit of LED. We've spoken about the sort of rehabilitative powers of it on the sort of on the body, on the muscles, on the joints. Are there any applications or is there any data even to show the power of LED on the mind, on making us feel better as human beings?
Well, for those of you who have experienced the Soluma already, you probably reported that you, after a 30-minute treatment, felt a lot better. And we know from the clinical literature that low-level light therapy triggers the production of serotonin in the brain, happy hormone. And so as a result, after a 30-minute Soluma treatment, you're feeling calmer, you're feeling happier, you're feeling, euphoric.
What did I say to you? I said it feels like lying on the beach, but without the sun damage.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great observation that, to a certain degree, light therapy is nothing more than walking out on a sunny day, except we've taken out the damaging wavelengths. So you're only getting the benefit of the light energy that the body can actually absorb and use.
No, it's really important. I think you're so right. We all know the powerful effects of walking outside on a sunny day and feeling the warmth of the sun on our skin. But to be able to do that every single day from the comfort of our own homes even, or sort of better, sort of integrated into a lovely treatment in a clinic is really powerful stuff for the skin, the body and the mind. So that was really interesting. Thank you so much, Patrick, for sharing all of that with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So our next speaker is Medical Director of Aesthetics, the one and only Miss Sherina Balaratnam. She needs no introduction, and she could probably do her introduction far better herself than me anyway, because she's such a master of words. But Sherina, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for hosting us so beautifully. I'd love to just start by asking you a little bit about the evolution of aesthetics. So you established your clinic in Beaconsfield in 2015, but on the subject of tech and beauty, how has your offering shifted? I mean, what you were doing 8 years ago in the clinic must be very different to what you're actually doing today.
Thank you, Francesca. Yes, absolutely. I come from a background of reconstructive plastic surgery, so anatomy has always been a big passion of mine. And coming into the non-surgical world, injectables was actually the first offering I ever did, because the understanding of anatomy means that you understand where facial aging actually begins from. We understand that there's 5 layers of the face, and so we need to start treating from the depths of the skin, such as the skeletal area. We need to start lifting the face in a certain region, and I guess 10 to 15 years ago, those were the trends. So that was pretty much what I was drawn into, that's what I fell into, and that was the natural progression of someone coming into the aesthetic sector. So maybe it was my naivete at the time, because I didn't understand energy devices, light devices. They were also fairly new at the time in my world, because we didn't have those in the NHS. So I guess when I started aesthetics, yes, I had the experience of radiofrequency with microneedling. I had a lot of experience with botulinum toxin injections to treat lines and wrinkles, etc. And I had a vast amount of experience with facial injectables, as you know. And I had tremendous results with that. But very similar to plastic surgery, something was missing. And we weren't thinking about the facial envelope, which is the skin. So we could address volume loss, we could address jawline recontouring, we can contour and sharpen somebody's chin, we can augment the cheek, and we can make people look less tired. So it was fantastic, and I was very satisfied with that aspect of what I did, and we did that well. But there was the missing piece, which was the skin entity. And I guess the trend is, Francesca, I noticed back in 2012 to 14 that whenever I did these energy devices pre-aesthetics, I didn't feel that patients were responding as well to the treatments that they were investing in. And they would be investing. The treatments that we have to offer you, they're investments. I don't consider them expensive. I consider them investing for the future.
But they're also an investment in your time as well.
And the patient's time. So I want to be committed to giving our patients a result. And where I felt the skin wasn't responding to the treatments I was delivering, I needed to understand why. So when we fast forwarded then to 2015, my mission, I guess, in aesthetics was, I'm going to take the opportunity with time now in my own clinic and my own piece. And we were a new clinic, we had no patients. And I thought, I want to give myself the opportunity to learn something new. So I invested in the first piece of equipment was the Visia Digital Skin Analysis. And I put that by the front door because it was my first piece of kit. Because I needed to see, our patients need to see what results they're going to get. So we needed a baseline. So why don't we start that journey together? Let's take everything off. Let's pop your face in there. And let's really understand what's going on. So we take a great consultation. But the majority of the consultation is actually asking the patient, what are your concerns? And then really going into lifestyle behaviors. Now more than ever, 8 years later. But I used to ask about sun damage being number 1, because that was the biggest culprit. Cigarette smoking, number 2. That's gone down in priority. And then we also used to ask about alcohol consumption, because those were the 3 big ones at the time. No one used to ask about stress levels in 2015.
Yeah,
not as much as they did now.
And it must be so critical to exactly all of your assessments that you're doing for the skin. It's a huge driver of inflammation.
Absolutely. So no one used to ask about stress levels. Nobody used to ask about sugar and glycation. Nobody used to worry about those things in the past. So I guess when I thought about my injectable practice, I thought, wow, I'm seeing a lot more irritation of the skin. I was seeing a lot more patients with disrupted skin barriers, where beyond the injectable, I didn't actually want to carry out my facial fillers in that category of patient because the skin is compromised. And as an injector, you don't want to inject into compromised skin because you're introducing a dermal filler and you're potentially increasing the risk of that filler turning into something you may not necessarily want it to, a nodule, delayed onset, or immediate. You don't want your patients to bruise. You don't want patients to have granulomas in the future. So these are very small risks in our injectable world, but nonetheless, I didn't want to increase that risk by looking at a skin that is literally disrupted. So I thought, actually, there is a great cohort of patients where I can carry out my facial fillers and my toxins and get a fabulous result. But there is also a large sector of patients where I did not feel comfortable to address. And that's when I realized we need to understand how the skin functions. I want to understand the science of skin aging. And Patrick describes it so beautifully. It's very easy to understand. But we also know so much more now. We're all using topical vitamin C as antioxidants to remove and erase the effects of UV damage and injury. We're all using hyaluronic acid as topical supplements almost, so that we can rehydrate the top of the skin. And we're getting so much better at that. We can also increase our oral intake of supplementation and feed ourselves from the inside out. And now we know where the injectables work. but there was something else missing. And fast forward 8 years, we understand now sleep, sugar, stress, chronic inflammation, and it's affecting absolutely everything, especially beyond lockdown. And I can feel it in myself more than anything as well. So when I touch my patients, I examine them, I feel their skin and their facial structures. This is now beyond the injectable practice that I do. I love to invest in great quality skincare, which is why we've gone above and beyond 8 years later to introduce our second skincare line, because the first one was excellent and it had to really, really top trumps with the next one I introduced. So we have innovative stem cell technology from plants to really drive the skin health in a hyper-performance way and ignite it even better by the power of light. If plants need it, as you said, mammals also need it too. And we have the science that Soluma actually delivers, because I'm not going to invest in anything that doesn't work. I have a philosophy in life: cheap always becomes expensive. And that is a mantra in which I live by, because it doesn't work. The patient invests in something. How do you genuinely know it is going to do something? Whether it's a filler, whether it's a light device. So I always believe in that. And then finally, the radio frequency, the skin tightening, the microneedling. And I have to say, in the many years that I've been doing this, the last 12 to 24 months has accelerated in the science of aging, the speed of the delivery of these types of muscle regenerating technologies. They started in the abdomen, then they went to the calf, and now they're in the face, and God knows where they're going to go next. And I'm very excited because I do believe that beyond the injectables, which I do every single day, even my injectable treatments are going to become more refined. They're going to start upregulating the body's own collagen and elastin and hyaluronic acid, and we're seeing that now. So I think where the perfect blend is something what I call treatment blending, combining the topicals, the technologies, perfectly positioned strategic injectables together with the dynamic mindset, and that's what I'm all about.
And I think you touched on it right at the beginning when you sort of spoke about the importance of skin health and understanding how the skin envelope functions, the importance of the viscera and understanding and really diagnosing what's going on beneath the skin surface. I'm interested to know how the needs of your patients emotionally almost have changed as you've gone on that journey with them. 8 years is a good amount of time, and I assume, having gone through lockdowns, pandemics, you've probably seen your patients go through having families, going through menopause, maybe having divorces, grieving. How have their needs changed as patients and as human beings?
I think my patients certainly want to be more informed. They want to know exactly what they're getting. They want to understand the science. They want to know where they're investing their money in. They want to make sure that whatever their investments they're having is going to work and actually make them feel more comfortable for a very, very long time. So I need to be able to also give them that, as well as to give them fast results. The modern day man and the modern day woman wants results yesterday, and just like me. So because of that, I've got to think of multiple ways and multiple touch points to be able to deliver that.
And it's finding the right devices and the right technology that can deliver that experience, that can deliver that no time for downtime, for that lack of wanting any pain or sensation almost, but also wanting incredible visible results as soon as you look in the mirror. I mean, we don't want much, do we?
High expectations. So look, quite rightly so, the patient or consumer expectation has shot up. We're living our lives through a mobile phone. We can literally order anything we want from our mobile phones, book holidays, have dinner, we can do anything through our phones, and it arrives also very quickly. So we have to now work towards that culture and that mindset to deliver results quickly as well, that patients generally can see, they can feel, and they'll be able to get compliments from their friends and family. So because we've got to work faster, I've got to think, okay, if my patients are happy with their injectables and they're looking for something more, I have to work cohesively with a number of these technologies in order to drive the results as fast as we can. I think physiologically we have to respect there is a natural skin cycle. And that skin cycle at someone my age is probably about 6 weeks. Younger than me would be about 4 weeks. And so we generally change with time. But we can certainly now see with the combination of the stem cell plant technology, combination of light therapy, because we understand that aging is a disease of mitochondrial function, we can turbocharge and accelerate the speed in which we get results. And as you say, then the serotonin kicks in and patients actually feel so much better.
So it's not just about choosing the right technology, it's actually in combining the right technologies, those future-proofing technologies, and sort of having that hybrid approach that is also equally incredibly personalized.
I love the hyper-personalization because at the end of the day, when you are here, I mean, look at where we are today. We could host this anywhere. You could host this anywhere. I'm sorry. It just feels nice. And I think there's something very special about having a treatment with a lovely person who has the right intention for you, who's going to deliver it especially for you. And I think hyper-personalization has to lie within that relationship between the practitioner and their patient. That for me is number one. So my selection of my team, and you've met Cheryl Marsha-Williams, you've met Banu Rowe, and there's also the rest of my team, that has to be an extension to what the patient is going to be comfortable with. And that's very, very key because this is all based on trust as well. That patient has to know that they can trust their skin, faces, scalps, and bodies with my team and myself. And then there's the experience you want to build around that, the soft touches. That's really, really key because we are a lot more consumed, we are a lot more confused, and we are a lot more hyper-stressed in a good way. Maybe we're wired that way, but also there is the negative stress, there is the bereavement, and there is the grief sometimes, and there is all of that. And there is nothing sweeter than having a treatment like that you know is going to deliver a result, but delivered in just the most beautiful way. And engulfed in this beautiful light that is going to make the patient feel amazing and complement.
And you mentioned at the very beginning of that the partnership essentially that exists between practitioner and patient. And I'd be interested to get your thoughts on the power of that relationship extending into home, about at-home and devices specifically. I mean, do you see great benefits from patients who do their requisite homework, who actually invest, who embrace that sort of at-home technology to really supercharge the results that they're getting with their clinical treatments?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give you an example of at-home technology. How many of you here own an electric toothbrush? Everybody in this room owns an electric toothbrush. That's an at-home device because we go to our dentist 3 to 4 times a year, sometimes more, sometimes less, because our parents have always told us to do so. So we've been coached and nurtured all of our lives to visit the dentist. Why? Because we need to clean our teeth and we need to prevent decay. So that's the form of aging of the oral cavity. And if we don't do anything about it, we're going to have an acceleration to the aging of the oral cavity. What does that present like? Decay causes gingivitis, inflammation. You get decay, you get cavities. And what do our parents tell us to do? Go to the dentist. So if you take the analogy then from the mouth and the oropharyngeal area to the skin, our parents don't tell us to clean our skin naturally, or maybe we did not know to use those right topicals in the right way without overstripping the skin from a very young age. And then we unfortunately have to go through puberty and hormonal changes, and we start becoming a little bit more oily and greasy. And I was a very sporty girl in Malaysia, and I played a lot of tennis and squash and scuba diving, and I was always outdoors with my bike. So I naturally developed my puberty acne, and we managed it as best as we could, but we didn't know back then as well. So hygiene plays a really key part in accelerated aging, and we understand so much more now because of the levels of microbiome change that we can see on the skin analysis, and a topical like the XOE can change the microbiome for the better, and I see it in patients. So my analogy is all of us actually own an at-home device with our electric toothbrushes. So this is why I see an extension of Patrick's device, for example. I believe everybody should have that at home.
Didn't you say you go to sleep under it 4 times a week? Am I making that up?
3 to 4 times a week, yes.
When
yes.
your dog isn't using it.
When it isn't using it. But I think there's a lot of myth behind at-home devices, and I could plug in LED home devices, and you're going to see a lot of things. I can plug in radio frequency devices, and you're going to find a lot of things as well. But there are very few devices out there in the market that have FDA clearance. Very few out there. So you do have to weave through the data in order to find really what you're looking for. And another thing to also think about is advertising. I think advertising is something that can be very, 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 very tricky to navigate through. And you've got to be very clear. There's a lot of lasers out there that promise the world into clearing and eradicating pigmentation. And the marketing is beautiful and the marketing is very sexy. But really, can it actually do what it says on the tin? And can it do it safely and effectively? I'm not really convinced.
I think it's difficult for the consumer to navigate sometimes because there are so many options. You're right, and it can be overwhelming. And again, that goes back to the importance of finding the right practitioner who you can have that honest and open dialogue with, and who can really guide you in the right direction. I mean, evidently, you do take a very 360-degree approach to the well-being of your patient. You know, you're really addressing skin, fat, muscle, bone, everything else in between, connective tissue, circulation, lymph. It's sort of never ending. But what about the power of the mind? Because I think we've really noticed that undeniable connection between skin, body, mind. Where does that fit in at aesthetics?
It fits in with me everywhere. It's really, really important because we want our patients to be happy. Why do we have these treatments? As a practitioner, I want to be happy. I want to get a result that my patients can see, feel, track, measure, celebrate, and I want them to go home feeling really fabulous. And that is it. They will also want to be able to have these treatments and that experience over and over again. And I think it's important for us as practitioners to feed that dynamic mindset and to feed that engagement, because you don't want someone to come in and just have a treatment. And I hear this from patients sometimes, and I feel sad because they might have had the same treatment, whether it's anything that you've seen here, but they've had a very different experience. And when I ask them, what did you have? And they said, I just had the treatment. And I literally just had the paddles, and it got taken off, and then I checked out. And I'll say, well, what happened to the communication? What happened to someone asking you how much water you're drinking so you can feed the amount of radio frequency that's going to be absorbed by the tissue?
They're lacking that education. They're missing half the point of the treatment, in a sense.
Yes, the treatment. And then they blame the treatment. This brand didn't work, and that RF needling treatment was barbaric, and that didn't have the right effect on me. And I said, well, did anybody ask you how much water are you drinking? How much sleep are you having? Have you been advised that you need to do some exercise and you can't just depend on the device? Has anyone told you that you've got to cut back on your 6 days a week where you're drinking alcohol and consuming food beyond 9 o'clock at night? You do have to make some basic lifestyle modifications, but if a practitioners are not asking the right information from that patient and extracting, then they're not going to be able to deliver the right treatment and ultimately make the person happy.
It goes back to being a doctor. You know, your sort of guiding principles really are to deep dive, to investigate, to really understand what makes the patient in front of you tick.
It is our duty.
Absolutely. Sherina, thank you. That was such a fascinating oversight. And any questions for Sherina, she'll obviously be here at the end when we have our audience Q&A. But thank you. And I think that was a really nice lead on to Anna and her power of the mind now.
Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for joining us. You've already met Anna. She's our clinical hypnotherapist. Gorgeous and glowing on the end there. Tell us, Anna, a little bit about the patients that you see as a clinical hypnotherapist. You see people from all walks of life, all chapters of life, all stages. What are they coming to you and seeking?
Well, to not be very vague, it's literally everybody and anyone. But reiterating kind of what you were saying, people, you know, sugar, stress, sleep, they're three of the things that people come to a lot. I mean, sugar addiction at the moment is huge. It's quite a pandemic in itself, really. So looking at that, self-esteem, confidence, relationships, relationship patterns, going after the wrong person, being happy in and out of love, addictions, fears, phobias, literally any behavior you have that you don't like, that doesn't resonate with you, who you are. That's kind of what I work with.
It's amazing. It feels like everybody needs to see or have you in their lives at all times. You practice a form of therapy called RTTT, Rapid Transformation.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. Rapid transformational therapy.
Transformational therapy. And so what does this do exactly to your clients? How does this benefit them when they come to you and have a session? And what's it doing for the mind?
It very much does what it says on the tin, therapy rapidly, because in this day and age, again, as you touched on, people want results quickly. They don't have the time. The benefit of this is, as I mentioned earlier, I work with your subconscious mind, so I don't really work with your conscious mind, your thinking mind. I have a lot of clients who come to me who've been to talking therapy, which is amazing. I'm never going to down talk it, but they get to a point where they know how their mind works, they know what they want to change, and they can't.
They've done enough talking.
Yeah, so what they want is they want the action, they want to feel differently. So what I do is I use it's a hybrid of hypnotherapy, NLP, CBT, and psychotherapy techniques, all in one session. It's a big session. It's a big 2-hour one. But I take them into hypnosis, and when we go in there, I regress them to the root cause of why. why they feel the way they do. So if they come with anxiety, for example, it's regressing them to 3 or 4 scenes, which will predominantly be in their childhood, about why they feel that way. And then we daisy chain them together, we investigate it, and then we interrupt it. And then we install how they want to feel. And so because we're going to the root cause of why they feel the way they do, that's why we get such rapid results. So between kind of 1 to 3 sessions, I hate saying 1 session because it always sounds so much, but often people come in for self-esteem, confidence issues, and they're out, or anxiety in particular, which has had a bit of a, I mean, it's always been there, but certainly since COVID, it's been one of the top 3 things I'm dealing with.
But that can be incredibly transformational, even that sort of short space of time to be able to affect something that can genuinely be such a burden for people. Can you explain to us the significance of regressing people back to those early years? Because I find this fascinating.
Okay, to give you a bit of so the subconscious mind is predominantly created between the age of 0 and 7, predominantly, which is a long time ago. And during that stage, we're at a lower brainwave state. We're at theta. So, our conscious mind is beta, goes into alpha, then theta, and then delta, which is sleep. And at that stage, if you imagine you don't have logic, you've been born in the world and you're just absorbing everything like a little sponge. And you don't have a filter. So you're taking in everything from your environment. And what is your environment? Your parents, your school, your teachers, the media. But you take everything in because you don't have the logic to say, if someone says to you, you're the clever one, you don't sit there and go, no, I'm not the clever one, not me. What you do, you take it in, and then you look for something to support your belief because it becomes your reality. So then if you get an A at school, you're like, okay, it's because I'm the clever one. And that happens with the good things, but equally that happens with the bad things. And I use an example, which makes me sound like a terrible mother. But for example, when my son was, a bit younger, he'd be there going, "Mummy, mummy, mummy," and I'd be on my mobile phone, as we all are. And I'd be doing something. I'd be like, "Hold on, Oscar, just a second." And to him, I'm the most important thing in his world. So if I'm then pushing him back, the meaning he can attach to that is like, I'm not as important as that bit of plastic. And that on its own, isn't necessarily going to give him a life of, I'm not loved. But then I don't pick him up at school, and that reinforces that belief. And then something else happens, again reinforces it. And then that could become his belief. And it's not saying never use your mobile phone, but it's something that can happen because they have a very primitive brain where they're just adding meaning to events.
So essentially, when you do this regression therapy with somebody, you have to interrupt those sort of neural pathways, and you have to, I suppose, reroute where their mind naturally wants to take them when they have these behaviours that are so limiting.
Yeah, exactly. You interrupt it, you get them with some things to look through the lens of an adult, upgrade the child. I'll give you a bit of an example. I'm trying to think of one of the many, but for example, anxiety, and it's particularly standing on stage. This is a number 1 fear. You'd ask people what number 2 is. That's death. They'd prefer to be dead than up here.
Stop it, that's hysterical.
So I had a gentleman come to me, bless him, and he wanted to do a Google talk, which he really wanted to do it. Every time he'd get up on stage or up to the front, he would have a panic attack, hands sweaty. I think we're all familiar with that feeling, heart going. And he just couldn't do it. And he was like, I need to do this if I want to progress in my career. So he came to me and I regressed him, and it went right back to when he was at school. And he was sat in front of the class and he was reading something, a little 6-year-old, and he said something wrong and the whole class laughed and then the teacher laughed. And his mind told him he told his mind, that is so embarrassing, that is so awful, that is so painful. And the mind's there to take you far away from pain and as close towards pleasure. And so because it was that painful, the mind was like, okay, I'm clever. Next time you're in that scenario, I'm taking you away from it. So then when, as you grow up and you forget about these things, he'd go up into the same scenario and then he'd get the sweaty palms and he couldn't do it. So then again, reinforcing that behavior. And then it got to the point where he couldn't even get near the stage. But we did the interruption. We looked at it from an adult, looked at what he'd done wrong, which was nothing, and reframed it and installed this new belief where he loved getting up on stage. He wanted to get up on stage all the time. Karaoke was great for him. And and he did the best speech, and now you can't get him off the stage.
That is so fascinating that you can really control the mind. It can really work against you, but it can really work for you at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your reality is essentially created by the pictures you make and the words you say to yourself. And I often use this as an example. A holiday to the Maldives. I think we all agree that is quite nice. And you have two people going there. One is petrified of flying, and they think of it, and all they think is the plane crashing, and the words they're saying is, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Another person sat there going, I'm thinking of the beach, I'm going to be there with my cocktail, I'm going to be in the sea. Exactly the same end result, two very different journeys towards it, two very different experiences.
It really goes to underline the power that the mind has over us and our everyday performance. On that note, is there anything that we can do as people, as patients, as human beings to actually optimize our brains, to strengthen it and almost work it out like a muscle, like everything else in our body?
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, especially with negative behaviours, like if you're not coming to me, which not everyone can, it's things like when there's a behaviour you don't like, because essentially we have all our subconscious behaviours, but when we turn conscious, when we start to become ourselves, we decide who we are and what we want in that. And when we start self-sabotaging, or things happen that don't align with that, there's something wrong. We're not. So when you can identify that behaviour, when you can identify that, that's the start. That's halfway there. If people who go in patterning relationships, you go for the same, emotionally unavailable men or, women or whatever, and you start to identify the behaviour you don't like. And then you start to dig deep, because that's not the behaviour, there's a reason. So why am I going for that type of person? Is it because I don't think I'm worth it? I don't think I'm worth a guy who is available. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm all these things. And dig deeper. What is the belief that you hold that is stopping you to be who you want to be? And when you get that, and it takes a lot of journaling or talking and working it out with yourself. And when you've worked out what that belief is that you have, you can then start to look at how you get to where you want to be. Visualize and write down how you would get to where you want to be, and then hold yourself accountable and start to make yourself do that new action. And when you start to do it and you repeatedly do it, you're building that new neural pathway that is now going to be your new go-to. Not the unavailable man, it's the nice, lovely man who's going to take you out and treat you well.
And this is really interesting, because you and I, over the course of the past 48 hours, keep talking about manifesting. Yeah. And I think that's really valid, isn't it, actually? It sounds like something that's so woo-woo and sort of, irrelevant, and how can that possibly wield any results? But it genuinely can cause results.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day, but if you don't know what you want, you're not going to get it. And the subconscious mind, it literally processes billions of bits per second. Your conscious mind only does about 40 to 60. So how does it know what is important? You have to tell it. And this is why vision boards, I hate saying them. I think someone called it an action board the other day. I was like, that's great. You put on the things you want to see, because then when you've got them, your subconscious will be more attuned to them. I'll give an example. It's a really bad example, but I was in Turin with my boyfriend recently, and he really needed to get contact lenses. And he was like, I need to see an optician's. I hadn't seen an optician anywhere. As soon as we said it, we found one. And then the rest of the time I was out there, all I could see was opticians. And it happens with if you buy a new car, or if you do something, once it's on your wavelength. So I think with manifesting, when you decide what you want, you've put it out there, and your subconscious will do everything to get you close to that. It will start giving you the opportunities or putting them in front of you. You'll notice this more, you'll notice that. It'll take you closer to where you want to be.
God, how incredibly fascinating. Tell us a little bit about the future, where you see it going, because we're surrounded by technology. We've spoken so much about technology and its incredible power to change how we age, how our bodies function in the long run. But do you see a space for technology in the world of mental health, in the world that you exist in, or is that frankly terrifying?
Frankly, it terrifies me on so many levels. AI, gosh. Technology as a whole is good going forward. We know more, we have more knowledge, we know more about people. Will AI replace someone like me? Will they be able to have the level of emotional intelligence that I do? Who knows? But I think certainly the way we go forward, being able to be more connected with people, which is a huge thing. And I think there are so many side effects from COVID that we have no idea the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen to the mental health and what the impact was, especially on the younger generations. Studies have come out already, actually, that even boys at that time, because they played video games, they would connect with their friends. So they still had quite a higher level of connection, which benefited them.
And that really carried them through.
Yeah, totally. And so it does have a place. I know there's a lot of bad rep with it, with the dopamine addiction and dopamine the lack of it, because it just sounds terrible. But I do think there's a level of, it does help connect you. Although we were sat at breakfast today and Patrick actually mentioned what would we be doing like 20 years ago or something, because we're all on our mobile phones and not talking to everyone.
We wouldn't be scrolling.
So in some way we're very connected with the world and often sometimes less connected with each other.
It's true, but you said it yourself, you offer virtual Zoom sessions now. You also, and I've had the pleasure of being able to do a session with Anna actually, and you send people after their session an audio recording, which is really powerful, and that's a very significant part of how you retrain the brain, isn't it? Having that in digital format. People don't have to come back to you over and over again.
Yeah, that is another benefit of coming to me quickly, because when I always create like the transformation on an audio file, but I do it because of the repetition, because the subconscious mind learns by repetition. So when you go away, we've done the work, you've shifted, you've created that new little neural pathway, which is your new go-to. And then action, the new action you take will strengthen it, but also repetition of your new belief system does. And so I give them it to listen to for 21 days and beyond, which just strengthens it and works with the action and then really reinforces that pathway so it is as strong, if not stronger, than your other one.
Incredible. See, it's not so scary. Technology, you're doing it already and you didn't even know.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was an amazing overview and so sort of riveting to dip into sort of what the mind can offer us and how we can explore its potential. That's really wrapped up our panel discussion, but I just have to say it's been absolutely eye-opening for me. It's been fascinating to listen to all three of you. My head is spinning with the amount of information that all of you can impart as individuals, and I hope you agree with me that it's been really informative and educational, but also fascinating. So a huge thank you to our amazing Beauty Triangle. I think for me that magic happens when we do combine the intelligent tech that we've all discussed really with the guidance of an expert practitioner, anyone such as yourselves. And that's really how we're going to sort of supercharge ourselves for the road ahead and rehabilitate our skin, body, our mind, and ultimately unlock our potential. So really, really interesting insights. Thank you, all of you. We do have some time for some audience questions. I don't know if there were any in the audience. If not, our amazing speakers will obviously all be here a little longer. So do put your hand up if you have any questions. No? Everyone is very shy. But we'll all be here for a little while longer as well. So please come up to everybody. We'd love to have you back at more Beauty Triangle events as well. Hopefully we'll be here in years to come. We'll also be hosting events as we always do every month in London. So do sign up to our mailing list. Victoria's going to be at the door, so you can always chat to her and get a little flyer from her that has information on all of our talks and how you can register for them. And also if you'd like us to connect you with anybody, with Anna, obviously with Sherina and with Patrick. So we will be here for you if you need that. But in the meantime, have a lovely rest of your evening. It's been such a pleasure to host you all here. And thank you again to you three as well. It's been amazing. Thanks, everyone.